I want to read you a letter I received from a gentleman whose first name is Derek. Quote, I like that you address the issues of Black America. I hate that you make it seem like it is Black America's fault. What? Sure, things are better today than they were, but please do not forget that the people who made laws barring people of color from restaurants, water fountains, and the fronts of buses are still alive and making the laws of today. What?
And now,
still alive and making the laws of today?
In record numbers.
We could never.
He continues. I'm not skipping anything. If you and I ran a race and I tripped you and then looked at you from the finish line and asked you why you fell, you'd be lost for answers. Same applies for the leaders of a country to impose red line housing, which, by the way, still exists on current loan and home purchases documents in use today. Let me interject something here. They're called restrictive covenants, and some old deeds do have them, and they're completely and totally unenforceable. And the question, again, is what's going on today? I've told you before, when young Barack Obama was a private lawyer, he joined other lawyers in filing a class action lawsuit against Citigroup on behalf of nearly 200 plaintiffs who claim, minority plaintiffs who claimed that their loans were turned down because they were Black, not because they were not creditworthy, but because they were Black. Citicorp says, okay. They settled, gave them all mortgages. Virtually none of them was able to keep it, suggesting that they were turned down for exactly the right reasons, and that is that they were not creditworthy. But I will continue. Same applies for leaders of a country to impose red line housing, which, by the way, still exists on current loan and home purchases in documents in use today. Let me, before I go on, let me just also say one more thing. I've seen studies that show, as I've told you before, Japanese, Chinese, other Asian American applicants have their loans turned down less frequently than white applicants. Now, if there's racism going on, is it racism against whites and discrimination in favor of Asians? Is that what's going on here? I've also seen studies that show that Black applicants applying for a loan at community banks owned by Blacks have a turn-down rate higher, largely because the Black-owned banks are more thinly capitalized and can't afford to take a risk. But let's continue with the gentleman's letter. Quote, you act like your success and Obama's equals to all Black success.
For the poor and their donors. And we pray for you every day. And
well, yeah, I do. I came from a father who cleaned toilets. Obama didn't know his dad. That's why he wrote his book. Both of us worked hard. Both of us stayed focused. I would argue that I worked harder than Obama did, because Obama, by his own admission, wasn't particularly a good student in high school. I was. You act like your success and Obama's equals to all Black success. Let me pause again here and say something. The most prominent think tank on the left is called the Brookings Institution. One of the most prominent think tanks on the right is called the American Enterprise Institution. And both of them pretty much said the same thing about what one needs to do to escape poverty. And the first thing is to finish high school. Now, Derek, if you're still listening, explain to me how and why we've got a 50% dropout rate in many of our public high schools. Is that because of systemic racism? Is that because we still have the same racist people making laws of today? When the people in charge of the schools, public superintendent of schools in many of the cities, are Black, as are the mayors, as are frequently members of city council, if not the president? You act like your success and Obama's equals all Black success. Here's where I would suggest, sir, that maybe, just maybe, your attention ought to be focused on what's wrong with the education K through 12. How can it be that in California, 85% of Black kids cannot read at state levels of proficiency, 80% of Hispanic kids can't, and math scores for both are even worse? Why aren't you upset about that? But you're mad at me for telling people to work hard and persevere? I mean, I find this whole letter bizarre. He continues, quote, I work for a local fire department which has hired chiefs of all races, but trust me, there are several members on board who feel that their Caucasian skin was overlooked for the job, not to mention the uncloaking of the Trumpers and their now open hatred. I have no idea what that even means. Trust me, there are several members on board who feel that their Caucasian skin was overlooked for the job. You mean there are a lot of people in the fire department who feel that a lot of people got promoted over them who are inferior, less qualified? Is that what you're saying? And by the way, as a small L libertarian, here's where I want to point out. When there's discrimination in organizations, you're going to find it far more likely to be in the public sector than the private sector, because discrimination in the private sector costs you money. You promote somebody unqualified in the private sector, it costs you money. You promote somebody unqualified in the public sector, so what? So, if you really want to make sure that the playing field is more level, you'd want to reduce government footprint. Anything and everything that you can go online and find in the so-called digital yellow pages that's also being done by government should be privatized, including fire departments. Do you know most fire departments in this country are voluntary or privatized? Didn't think that I was going to end up suggesting your job should be privatized, did you, Derek? Quote, how about telling both sides versus saying if you work hard and keep your head down, you'll be okay? Well, because that's the truth. Quote, laughable that you cannot see the faces of our country's leadership and law enforcement and think, oh, yes, everything is great now. Did I say everything is great now? Perfect example is the fact that far more Caucasians agree with your position, though here it comes, and praise you to the heavens for them. Has Hillary praised me? Has Bill Clinton praised me? Has Biden praised me? Has Schumer praised me? Quote, with more education and focus, a major change in our understanding of our place in the country, we will do better, end of quote. What a bizarre, sad letter, Derek. I have more to say to you on the other side, Mr. Derek. Please don't go away. I'm Larry Elder.